You're welcome. Let's get started with our big story this morning as we revisit a defining movement in Nigeria's civic landscape. Hashtag EndSARS. It's been nearly 5 years since the nationwide protests against police brutality that swept across the country, culminating in one of the most intense citizen-led demands for accountability Nigeria has ever seen. Now, this week, a federal high court in Lagos ruled in favor of justice, ordering the Nigeria police to pay 10 million naira in damages to protesters who were arrested and brutalized during the October 2024 EndSARS memorial rally at Lekki Toll Gate.
So the court held that the arrest and torture of the protesters was a violation of their fundamental human rights, reaffirming that peaceful protest remains a constitutional right, not a criminal offense. So what does this judgment mean for justice, memory, and the future of civic engagement in Nigeria? Well, joining us now to unpack the legal, political, and symbolic weight of this ruling is Mr. Justice Ojienoh, who is a human rights lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
It is my pleasure to join you. It's great to see you.
Great to have you.
James, please.
Oh, I mean, Justice, I must say 10 million naira. But if there's one thing that we know about the Nigerian government is our obedience to court ruling. How do you see this playing out?
Oh, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. Nice. Judith, nice. Nice. Beautiful.
Okay, from that angle, I think it is compulsory for them this time to actually obey the court's judgment.
Not
if they are not, this is not obiter. This is very, very straight. And I feel that they have no option than to obey it. If they are not appealing it, you know, they have the challenge of appealing issues to the Hill, to the Court of Appeal, to the Supreme Court, which I think is unfortunate, and we can have that discussion on another day. But there is a certain section 84 of the Sheriffs and Civil Processes Act that talks about the fact that if there is a judgment sum against the government, for example, against the police, then the Attorney General still has the right and power to check whether they want to pay it or not. But I'm very, very happy that the court recently overruled that provisions of Section 84, because once a judgment is given against an authority, whether it's the customs, whether it's the EFCC, whether it's the police, if we have to leave it to the Attorney General to decide whether they want to pay or not, then the Attorney General may exercise his discretion not to pay. And that will thwart the power of enforcement of the court. We can't leave discretion to the person that the judgment is against. So that absurd situation was cured, I think, late last year or early this year. So with this, if enforcement is proceeded against, they will pay. They will have to pay.
I have a little concern about the amount. However, to clarify, this is 10 million for the general group or 10 million each?
No, it's for the general group.
General group. So that's a 10 million. It's not,
I use the appeal. It's not much, but let me tell you some of the things that I'm particularly personally happy that this is correct.
Before you hold that thought, let me welcome, we have joining us now, Oluwaseyi Akinde, member EndBadGovernance Lagos Congress. Oluwaseyi, you're welcome. We'll be coming to you in a minute, but let Justice finish his thought. Justice.
Oh, fantastic. I'm even happy that you have Professor Sheyi here.
Professor.
We always meet on the grounds. And in fact, on that fateful day when they were practically abused and arrested, I was one of the lawyers that got there first to be able to see exactly what happened. I may have to leave exactly what happened to them, but legally significant is the fact that at least protesters, it is re-emphasized again to the government and the police that protesters have a right to peaceful protest in Nigeria.
You were about to tell about the significance of the payment. I was telling that it was rather little.
Okay, no. Okay, for me, the fact that there's even a judgment against them, these protesters are not exactly looking for money. Despite the fact that what happened on that day was very, very unfortunate. The part that pained me the most was that they were groped. They put female police officers, they deliberately used Gestapo style, they covered their face so that people they are not easily able to identify them. They were groped, they were bastardized. Every wrong thing on the face of the earth was done to them. I'm significantly happy that at least monetary damages were laid against them, and there were court pronouncements again reaffirming the position of protesters. And another thing that I'm extremely happy about was there was a judgment that was procured by the Lagos State government very close to the August 1st hunger protest. And that judgment said that people can only protest in Lagos in two places, the Ganifaremi Park and one other park on the island. And this court particularly said that you cannot extend that judgment perpetually and forever to cover all protests in Lagos. So now that we have a court judgment saying that people have a right to protest anywhere in Lagos, not restricted to those two places, I feel that these are some of the additional wins that this judgment actually procures for the average Nigerian.
Let me come to you, Oluwaseyi Akinde. Many thanks again for joining us. Now, you were part of the 2020 and the 2024 EndSARS commemorations and remain an active voice in the EndBadGovernance movement. I must say, how, first of all, your members of the movement, how are they interpreting this court ruling? And most importantly, what happened on that day? And do you think that this ruling sort of would appease the injustices that the members of your team faced on that day?
Oh,
fortunately, we lost him there.
We'll get him back, I'm sure, Oluwaseyi. Please do try to rejoin.
You're talking about just what this will set in terms of precedents for future protests. But again, back to the first question about, look, I'm sorry I'm hounding on this, right? But we've seen this over and over again. I mean, should protests really be restricted in the first place? What exactly is protest? It's the same thing that happened in 2023 as regarding, 27 states and the FCT. We saw how everyone has started interpreting what the law is and what it ought to be. And so I do have to ask about, just precedents and it being set with this ruling. You said it's important and significant and it would move forward in terms of dissent and protest in Nigeria. But would the Nigerian government be fair? Would the security agencies be fair? Would this also set them right to know that they're not supposed to group protesters and not supposed to use, and they're supposed to use anti-riot equipment and not live rounds ammunition? Your take? Okay,
for me, I think that this, to a large extent, since it has brought it again back to the front burner, and since it's a chastisement, you need to read the judgment or the reportage on the judgment. It's a direct chastisement on the Nigerian police. It's very, very unfortunate that Professor is not talking on this point in order to corroborate all the things I'm saying. It was very, very bad. Azan Taiwo Soweto, who is one of the applicants in this case, his clothes were torn on that day. They beat people up. And what did these people want to go and do? They said they just needed to lay a wreath in commemoration. Is the Nigerian government saying that the people that died in EndSARS that didn't happen?
No, they don't deserve respect.
That they don't deserve, even though they eventually ate their vomit in a manner of speaking and constituted a tribunal that looked into it and saw that there were deaths, there were injuries. Aside that, there was an ECOWAS court judgment that also asserted that these wrongs actually were committed against the Nigerian youth.
Selective amnesia.
So are you now saying they shouldn't lay wreaths? So why did you go very, very unprofessionally? And on the facts of that day, what the protesters asked the authorities that be for on ground was that, can you please identify the people that did this to us and discipline them? If you do that, we won't escalate. That was the pact that the protesters were willing to even have. They were not asking. In fact, some of the things that were stolen, the police offered to buy it back for them. They said, no, we are not in this for the money. Can you please identify the people? Yeah, we know you deliberately covered their face and you were out to practically hound us down to ensure that this doesn't, we don't get the courage to come and exercise our constitutional right. But we will not back down until you isolate those officers and deal with them according to law. You are an emblem of the law. You are a totem of the law. Deal with them. If you deal with them, we will not escalate this further. Then, of course, the authority or the police at the time said, no problems, we'll deal with them. We'll deal with them in 1 week's time. And that didn't happen. That's the major reason why this matter got escalated to the court. With respect to whether they will abide by it or not, These people will not back down. I know them. They are Luther continual people. They are fighters. They defy the police, even barriers of the God.
We have one of them back here with us. Oluwaseyi Akinde is back online with us. To keep it short, I'd like to know what you thought about the details of the court ruling and how it will affect future endeavors by protesters. Ms. Akinde. Well, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. You might want to check that device if it's muted. There you are. We're still having issues with your audio. Okay, go ahead. Yes, better. Go ahead.
I said good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, you in the studio, and good morning to one of our lawyers who is a soldier of democracy. The judgment came to us.
Very sorry, Mr. Akinde. We'll have to get back to you after we sorted your audio out because it is rather choppy. But I'm going to come to you with another question. Now, we've just had the police protest, hashtag police protest, of which Mr. Omoyele Sowore was a very big part of it. We saw the police actually this time were the ones who were protesting. Along with them were the police who were also trying to manage the situation. We saw their conduct very different. We have spoken to our correspondent this morning, Sergey Ibrahim, who was there to see and tell us exactly how the police were actually doing what the police were supposed to do as regard protests. Now, when you look at the two instances, what comes to mind for you regarding the conduct of the Nigerian police, whether it's something that can be salvaged, or do they have to be involved for them to behave?
It's a pyramid.
Okay, for me, I think that maybe the authorities of the police saw that they may suffer a mutiny if they try to use the police presently in force to do what they do with them against irregular protesters.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah,
what could the worst case scenario be if they did that? Is my point.
There will be an end to government. If there is no structure, if nobody can order another person to take particular actions, including authorities, if they cannot order their juniors or their subordinates to take particular actions, that will be an end to government. And the police, the present police officers know that they can see their future in those protesters. They can see that in a number of years they will be changing saddles. So that's you don't make an order to police officers to do that because they stand a chance of practically disobeying you. And once they disobey you, if the president as the commander-in-chief pursuant to section 130 of our constitution cannot direct the chief of army staff to take a particular action, or the chief of army staff cannot direct a particular battalion to take a particular action, or if the IG cannot direct his police officers to take particular actions, that will be an end to government. So it's a careful needle that they have to tread. They were treading with extreme caution because they stand a chance of being outrightly disobeyed. And if they are disobeyed, Nigeria is we are back to the obsession state of nature as sadly painted by Thomas Hobbes, where we are back to where might is right and life is nasty, silly, brutish, and short. So that's a major reason why I don't think they gave those directives. It could not have been given. But for the regular protesters, it is always given. I'm not saying it because I'm in the room. I'm saying it because their actions say it. Just talk about a protest now that you want to organize a protest. If even it is 3-4 people, you will see, especially in Lagos, the outsized number of force, show of force. The police officers on ground, a lot of times, sometimes can even outnumber the protesters. The kind of anti-riot, anti all the gears that they bring forth, including helicopters. It is why are we not exercising such a fear or such a show of force with respect to the people who are actually terrorizing this country, in some parts of Nigeria, are practically almost without the presence of government. But in some other parts where it is not supposed to be at all, we see an outsized show of force. So these are some of the things that we think that as much as possible, the Nigerian government generally, and I'm not restricting it to the police, the Nigerian law enforcement generally, they should recalibrate and choose their priorities. If they govern the society right, we'll have less protests, less reactions, and we won't even have protests at all, because the people who are making these demands are asking for the irreducible minimum that a human being deserves in a civil and civilized society.
What I find very interesting is that the type of process I want to see it evolve in Nigeria. I want to see less placards and more red paints and manures on the road, like the way they do in France. Anyway, let's switch gears now. We understand that Oluwaseyi is live on Zoom. Oluwaseyi, are you with us now? Can you hear us? Let's test your audio to see if you're good.
We still can't hear you.
We still can't hear you.
Perhaps you're muted? No. There you are.
We are having issues. We'll try to bring you back on, Seyi, for subsequent conversations regarding this. Because, I mean, when you look at it, August 1st around the corner, and that was last year around that time was the beginning of the EndBadGovernance protest, which lasted for 10 days, and we saw how that, dissolved. And we also, October 20th is also around the corner as well, and it's going to be 5-year anniversary for hashtag EndSARS.
These holidays now. I mean,
yeah, I got tabs, baby.
So
I got tabs. Yeah, so I'm looking forward. Yeah, so today's we're looking forward to EndSARS. The EndSARS protest will commemorate 5 days, October 20th. Do you think that this ruling will have any kind of implication, or this judgment will have any implication on how the police will conduct themselves, especially at their favorite spot, Lekki Toll Gate?
And especially noticing that they've also tasted what protests or real protests should be.
Yes. For me, I pray that it sways them. There's no lack of sufficient number of judgments of the court that they have not been furnished with, but they are still recalcitrant, and they still show up with this exact scorecard on this issue. Well, maybe with this one, I will advise the organizers of the protests to furnish them with an abundant number of copies of this certified true copy of the judgment of the court. It should be sufficient. They should probably produce like 100 copies and send it to all the police, all the significant officers of the Nigerian police force, so that they don't feign ignorance, so that the next time the protesters step out, they will not say they do not know what the position of the law is.
I have a very interesting scenario here, Justice. Now, the IGP has told that the police protest, that they will address the matters that were raised at the police protest. How much pressure do you think the IGP is under to make sure that the police are satisfied with whatever demands they're making, especially when you note the dates that Judith has just mentioned and that there might be similar protests coming? How much pressure do you think is under to service the demands so that the police are under control? Otherwise, worst case scenario, like you said, if another protest comes and the police feel aggrieved themselves, still.
The end of government. So I think it's under immense pressure, and that is why it is of extreme importance that people come out to protest. You see the demands that they are now taking very, very seriously now. It has always been on the table for years. So if there was no public outcry, if there was no protest that everybody could see, it won't be under any form of pressure, because sometimes these are the kind of people that we have in authority. Until there is a breakout, until there is something of an embarrassing nature, maybe on the local stage or on the world stage, that is when they feign taking action, even though they don't still think that they are taking actions. But it is very, very important that we always come out to exhibit our grievance towards whatever actions or inactions any form of authority, law enforcement, or government is taking. So I feel that it's under tremendous pressure, and they should always come out from time to time in order for him or them, or if he's saying he's not the only person taking the action, to actually do something about it. Because if we don't move the hands of these people, they will not take action. And under no condition should the IGP be telling us that government does not have an answer or government does not have a solution. They should stop perpetually telling us that it's still in the works, it's still in the process, just exercise some patience, give us more time. Those people that are in very, very terrible, poor conditions, they have been giving patients, they have been dishing patients, they die in patients, and they are probably going to be dying in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 decades. If we don't have great leaders, they are perpetually going to be dying in patients. So this is not a time for patience. Like Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do the right things. So I feel that the Nigerian government can actually solve that problem if they decide to.
I used to think it was, anyway, moving on. That quote, I always said it was Malcolm X, which was Luther King. Don't mind me, my brain does
it. You're wrong or he's wrong.
No, he's right. I was wrong the whole time. But from a legal standpoint, as we wrap up this conversation, if the Nigerian police doesn't obey or doesn't comply with this judgment, what legal redress, what legal options are available to enforce this judgment for the part of the victims? 2 ways. In fact, let me even focus on the major way, because the second one may be a bit more technical. There's a law of contempt in Nigeria. So all the parties that have been cited and ordered to actually make those payments, including Nigerian Police Force, as ably represented by the Inspector General of Police and the Commissioner of Police of Lagos State, they can be cited for contempt, and nobody is above the law. So if, except for, it's only four categories of persons that may not be instantly held for contempt in Nigeria, and that's pursuant to Section 308 of our Constitution, the President, the Vice President, the Governor, and the Deputy Governor in all parts of Nigeria. But if you don't fall in those categories immediately, if you do not carry out the judgment of the court, you can be held in contempt, you can be told to pay a particular amount, or you can actually be in prison. So there's no freezing of accounts in this option. No. That too can actually be done. That was the second. And I think I also mentioned it earlier in the conversation when I talked about Section 84 of the Sheriffs and Civil Process Act and things like that.
My final question, Justice, would be whether the police will get justice, or rather whether the EndBadGovernance group have gotten justice, a play on your name, and if the conduct of the Nigerian police will change henceforth when it comes to protests in Nigeria. Do you think?
Okay, for me, as for justice, I would say they've gotten a win. I won't even think that the amount is enough, given some of the things that I saw that happened to some of them. But it's still something in the bag. Yeah, I'd rather take it than nothing else. So that's for the protesters. But as for the police, whether it will change their ways, I pray and hope so. That's what I can say about the Nigerian police and the Nigerian situation, especially also the Nigerian government, because it looks like it is who gives them the order that they listen to and they try to carry out. They forget about the provisions of the law. Some of them, they are high enough in the ranks to actually take oaths pursuant to the Constitution, to abide by the provisions of the Constitution. But at the end of the day, they do not abide by the provisions of the Constitution. If even you didn't take an oath, the laws or a plethora of cases too, Section 40, Section 39, Section 41, Section 42, actually gives the average Nigerian this power. The case of Buhari and INEC in particular, Justice Ojienoh, JCA, went out on a limb to say that the police, they have to ensure that they protect Nigerians during those protests. They are not to prevent Nigerians from protesting. And Nigerians don't need permission from the police before they proceed on protest. So we don't do all the 24 hours before a protest, you start seeing police officers or law enforcement generally saying that they have intelligence report, they have intelligence report. If I even want to stay in front of my house to protest, next thing you hear the commissioner of police or the IGP saying they have intelligence report that I shouldn't protest in front of my house. All those things should be to an end. The day the police cannot protect the average Nigerian, including the average Nigerian protesters, they have lost it. It means they are no longer worthy to be called the Nigerian police as they are empowered in section 204 and 215 of our constitution. So I feel that a lot, I just have to circle back to I hope and pray. I hope and pray.
Oh, Justice Ojienoh, thank you very much for
Coming
coming through and for being with us in the studio.
You.
We also hope and pray that there is some sort of, redress when it comes to how protests are handled in Nigeria henceforth. That will be my prayer because, I mean, hey.
Anyway, I would also just say that if they don't want you to protest, just bring out pots and pans and just clang them from your windows. You know what I mean? French. 1813. During the fall of what's her name now? Just hit your pans and shout, "Revolutionnaire, revolutionnaire."